Hey guys, Dov here, back with another core unit for Total War Warhammer 2, and what I mean by core unit is a unit that is kind of a signature unit on the roster and very essential for that faction. Now today we're taking a look at the Skinwolves of Norsca. You can see this is actually my opponent. This is from Rubber Duck of War's Death Before Dishonor tournament that I participated in this week, and I picked the Beastmen. This is round one. I had first pick double bans, so I picked Beastmen and banned two undead factions, that being Vampire Counts and Tomb Kings. I'm pretty confident in the Coast matchup, so I didn't worry about them. This, however, is another matchup that can be tough for the Beastmen, potentially, and this is the main reason why right here. Skinwolves are nice, anti-large, fast-moving, pretty hard-hitting, monstrous infantry. Yeah, they've got Frenzy and, more importantly, Regeneration, plus a bit of physical resistance. So that Regeneration means they're good, very good, especially against any factions that don't have access to fire damage or that have very limited access to fire damage. So think of like Greenskins, obviously Beastmen, Skaven, you know, there are a few other factions as well that largely lack access to either Lore of Fire or effective fire damage units. So they're very good in those picks, and just generally are a nice kind of anti-cav, anti-monster option. They are pretty squishy, though. For a while, they fell out of favor, you know, to Famir because of their low melee defense and armor. But if you utilize their mobility and regeneration in the correct way, and especially in this big of numbers, they're bound to get some work done. So let's talk about the builds overall. He's got a couple Berserkers here, Icehorn Marauders in the center, and Wolfric leading the way on a Mammoth, obviously, plus Shaman Sorcerer Lore of Fire. I've got him with 5 Hounds, a mix of Chaos Poison War Hounds and regular Hounds. My idea here is I can use this massive Hounds to try and rear charge and just overwhelm by numbers these Skinwolves, since they have pretty light stats. Also, the Warhounds count as infantry, right? So they won't be subject to that anti-large bonus of the Skinwolves. They'll still take a lot of damage. Got a Cygor here, double Giant. I knew this was potentially risky here, but I figured the Giants have enough weapon strength to actually like one-shot the Skinwolf models, and just a bunch of supporting Ungor Spears, Foot Squad of Beastcasters, Manticores, Wildcaster with Viletide, and also got a Beast Lord on foot for buffs. So right off the bat, gonna get an engagement underway over here on the left. I start to kind of path my Giants forward. In all honesty, I want to keep pulling back and utilizing that Eye of Morslib, but you can see the Skinwolves are coming in here. They're going to come in and attack the Giants, which is definitely a good play. And these Skinwolves over here I want to make note of. I had a chance to maybe catch them with these spears, but I kind of missed the micro on it. Usually I would say prioritizing your low-tier infantry micro is not important compared to these other monsters, but if I'd been able to screen these guys out, and even still I do get an attack order on them, I'm going to send the Cygor into melee as well. Committing the Hounds here, you can see they're going to rear charge these Skinwolves and do quite a bit of damage, but it's going to take a little bit longer, and all in the meantime, this Giant here is about to get absolutely shredded by these Marauder Horsemen, and I had an opportunity there to sweep up and around. I mean, there were still these Marauders here and the Beasts of Tashnar, but I could have probably overwhelmed them and pushed these Horsemen off. Meanwhile, on the front line, my infantry have got shredded by Berserkers. They are now Skinwolves supporting against my Giant here. I am fighting in the woods, which gives me a bonus against them, because I don't think that Skinwolves have Woodsmen. Let's actually check. That's a good question. Let's see you, Wolfie boy. No, they do have Strider. Okay, so yeah, they also ignore terrain penalties, so really the only one being V-buffed is Wolfric in this fight, but yeah, the Skinwolves utilizing their anti-large bonus plus the Javelins just shred this Giant, and Giants have a lot of HP. Have like, what, like 8,000, 9,000 HP base, and so that's an impressive amount of damage. You can see I finally peeled my Hounds off of that fight over here. We were able to beat the Beasts of Tashnar and even chase off some Skinwolves, which is nice for me. It's keeping the balance of power relatively even. I'm finally getting back and taking care of some of these Horsemen, but at this point, one of the Giants going down and all of my supporting units being routed off means that the Skinwolves can turn their attention and kind of rout the Hounds off. The Terror as well of Wolfric kicking in there, and of course Hounds, because they have pretty low leadership, just running away, getting terrified. He manages to secure 2 more of the Horsemen here, and they're going to continue to pummel in, hit this Mammoth, and the Skinwolves now are fighting with the Manticore. I decided to throw the Summoned Manticore in here, kind of to act as an anchor. Originally the plan was if I can get the Skinwolves to blob up around the Giants, I wanted to rear charge with that Massive Hounds. Massive Hounds is now coming back, and we are going to be able to get a few charges in here. You can see how potentially this kind of shows strengths and weaknesses of Skinwolves. The low model count and low defensive stats mean if they get swarmed by like you know, fast-moving. Hounds are a really good example, but just in general, light cavalry that have high charge or high attack, just getting swarmed from multiple directions, or getting swarmed by units that have just way more unit models, right? They can run into some problems there, but manage to stabilize, and the Manticore summon, once that's gone, they're not going to be subject to terror, obviously. Though, at this point, I'm not feeling great about my chances to win. I had a pretty good option here. I came in to drop some buffs on these Ungor Spears, so they'd hold a little bit longer, but the Beast Lord actually gets caught up in combat there, and he's going to take a big ol' hit from Wulfric. I've still got this Cygor left, and I figure if I can kind of play off of the Cygor, maybe route off some of these periphery units, start to get some rear charges, I could maybe still win this. I really need to keep my Beast Lord safe, though. And yeah, Wulfric and the Shaman Sorcerer, I missed it. Shaman Sorcerer blasted one caster, Wulfric just stepped on the other one, so both my casters went down. At least I got 2 Manticore summons off, like 1 or 2 Vile Tides, but definitely rough. Had plenty of Winds of Magic at the end. And yeah, at this point the Cygor's making its final stand. Here come the Hounds. Still some Skin Wolves over there supporting Wulfric, and absolutely beautiful. Very cinematic too. I feel like this map, the Norskins came to raid the Estalian Shores. This is the Estalian 2 map, by the way. And the Beastmen just happen to be in the woods here. Absolutely gorgeous. Once the Cygor routes, I have more sleep. That's basically it. I'm going to hit army losses pretty quickly after that. And you can see, despite how much damage they took, this unit of Skin Wolves still on the field. So both kind of shows their strengths and weaknesses there. I wouldn't necessarily call them underrated. You definitely see them now more than you used to. Before, they gave them, you know, that like many patches ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. They gave some slight nerfs to Famir, some slight buffs to Skin Wolves, and Skin Wolves, as a result, have seen kind of a resurgence. I still think there's some matchups where you want Famir instead, or a mix of both, honestly. And there are some matchups where it's very risky to take Skin Wolves because of their propensity for fire damage. So that, you know, stuff like Empire and High Elves spring to mind immediately, right? Because they have a lot of different fire damage units and can really put a hurt on you with the high damage. So those two would probably be risky to bring Skin Wolves. But yeah, in terms of the rest of the army there, great job with the Berserkers in the front line, and those Horsemen just doing absolute work against the Giants. I really was sad I was not able to shut them down with the Poison Warhounds, but one of these Skin Wolves, 2 XP Chevrons too, they also contributed quite a bit in the felling of those Giants. So yeah, just kind of again, talking about these guys, I definitely would say the unarmored one is a lot more cost-effective. Because of the way the armor roll works, which for those of you guys who don't know, I do have a very old video where I talk about all of the stats and kind of go over the way armor works. If I can remember, I'll link it in the description down below. But anyway, so basically you pay 150 points for a -10 speed, which is very significant, especially in certain matchups, for 55 armor, which on paper looks great, right? 55 armor seems like it would be really nice. But in fact, 70 armor only mitigates between 35 to 70% of the non-armor piercing damage, depending on the roll. And, I mean, if it rolls as low as 35, that's really not much. I mean, granted, these guys are only at 15, so they're only mitigating between 15 to 7% of the non-AP damage that hits them. So that's even lower, but, I mean, consider the fact they've already got some physical resistance, right? And 70 armor is just kind of under where it starts to get really effective. Like, kind of 80 is the breaking point, and even 90, honestly, is where it starts to get really good. Like 100 plus, anytime you go over 100 plus is really good in terms of armor, but like the 50 to 70 range, it seems like it would be nice, but it really isn't as impactful as it might seem. Especially considering you sacrifice speed as well, which in certain matchups, again, Beastmen being one of them, definitely, you want that extra speed, right? Because Beastmen are a very fast faction in general, they have a lot of units which can generally outpace yours. You know, Centaur's only 84 speed baseline, but of course they do get quite a bit faster with that Primal Fury. And they also have Perfect Vigor as well, so obviously fast moving. You've got like Hounds and stuff. Minotaurs even are 62 speed, right? And if you look, the Armored Skin Wolves are 65, which is just slightly faster. Like, they would be able to catch them eventually, but at 75 speed, the regular Skin Wolves are able to catch them much more decisively. And as a result, they end up being a lot more cost effective in many situations. So yeah, I would say matchups where you would use them, Beastmen, Bretonnia, I'm not sure. I think the high charge on the Knights would be bad. Maybe you would take a couple of units kind of as a mobile break force. And on that note, the Regiment of Renown, the Maws of Savagery, picking up good armor-piercing damage. They still have pretty low defensive stats for what they cost, though, so you definitely want to try and give them some kind of defensive buffs, whether that be like Cascading Fire Cloak or, you know, something else. I guess nerfing your opponent's offense is the same thing, so you could do like a Transmutation of Lead, or even Enfeebling Foe to support them wherever they go. But that's kind of getting off track. Anyway, yeah, so matchups where I would use them, Beastmen, like I said, Bretonnia, maybe a couple. Definitely not Dark Elves. Dwarfs, you don't really need anti-large against them. You would just want more chariots. Empire is definitely a no-go. Any good Empire player is going to bring Banner of Eternal Flame and just tons of fire damage in this matchup, so it's not a good idea. Greenskins, I would say, definitely is a good matchup to bring them in. You do have to watch out because of their low defensive stats. They can get hit hard by certain units, but because of their mobility, they can help you win mobility against the Greenskins, which is actually the kind of the way that Norsca has to play in this matchup. You really can't play heads up into the Greenskins because they're just stronger in a straight-up face rush than you. So you definitely want to play off of your Skin Wolves and play more of a mobile style. High Elves, like I said, is a no-go. Lizardmen's an interesting one. They have some pretty good fire tools, and I don't know that you would necessarily bring too many of them in this matchup, but I don't know. Maybe you might want a couple of them in the Lizardmen matchup, but because they're pretty slow in general, I mean, Lizardmen as a faction, let's see, let's just compare, actually. I'm curious about Cold One Riders are 66 speed. Yeah, so you would actually want the unarmored ones so that they can outrun Cold One Riders if they have to. Skaven, I would say, definitely is a good pick here. They trade very well against Rat Ogres and Hell Pits, and yeah, just in general, Skaven, I mean, they have Warp Fire Throwers, but Warp Fire Throwers are not great against, on paper, they look like they should be good against Skin Wolves, but because of Skin Wolves' mobility and the limited range and slow speed of the Warp Fire Throwers, it ends up not working as well as you might think. Tomb Kings, I don't know, most of the undead factions in general, because of the lowish leadership of the Skin Wolves, I don't know that I would take them here. I mean, 60 leadership's okay, but it's not amazing. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Tomb Kings, especially because their monsters are a little bit heavier. I don't think it's necessarily what you want there. Coast, I could see them working pretty well against, actually, because they regenerate and have mobility. They can kind of punch in, draw back, punch in, draw back, and try and kind of work through the lines there. Vampire counts, I would say, also probably not. They're gonna get absolutely destroyed by Blood Knights, I will say that, for personal experience. Warriors of Chaos, again, maybe yes, maybe no. They do actually hard counter Chaos Spawn, which are not super common in this matchup. They also are pretty good against Giants and other things. I mean, generally, Norsca doesn't really have a problem taking down monsters. This matchup can be an interesting one, though. They do have access to Lore of Fire as well, of course, does the Warriors of Chaos, so definitely not that. Same for the Dark Elves. They don't have a ton of innate fire damage units, but they have Lore of Fire, definitely something to account for. Wood Elves, I think also this is potentially a good matchup for them, given that a lot of the Wood Elf large units are pretty light, most of them. The ones that aren't, you can debuff their armor quite easily, and also the mobility, again, very important against the Wood Elves. The fact that they can regenerate means that they can maybe take some missile fire, pull back, and then try and regenerate the damage and rinse and repeat until they run out of ammo, or I don't know. Just, I honestly haven't played this matchup that much in a while. Just on paper, it seems like the Skin Wolves would be pretty decent here. So hopefully I've rambled on long enough in this end screen. Just talked about the different use cases and everything. Definitely leave your suggestions in the comments below for more core, underrated, overrated units I should cover. Definitely looking for suggestions on all of those. And I've got a few more coming up, so stay tuned for that. If you like that sort of content, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you won't miss it. Thanks again. See you next time.